we used to think we understood cholesterol. It was this fearsome bogeyman, and people were convinced of that for probably a few decades. But it's become a little bit more controversial because nothing is ever settled in any sort of science. But you were saying you'd had an interesting experience regards cholesterol testing, George.
I did. 5 years ago, I had my appendix out and I went to the surgeon for a checkup and it was all good. And I don't know why, but the subject came up about cholesterol. And I said, I've never had my cholesterol checked in all my life. And he said, don't bother. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah. And really it does depend on individual situations and circumstances, but the idea that cholesterol is a problem goes back to the work of Ansel Keys in the 50s and 60s, who correlated cholesterol consumption, fats in the diet, with rates of heart disease. But there was a small problem with his work in that he left out in his final conclusions countries where it didn't match his theory. So he had this nice sort of gradient line showing the more sort of fats people were consuming and the higher their cholesterol, the more their heart disease.
What a naughty boy.
Yeah. And if he'd have put in some of the other countries, it would have looked a completely different graph.
Oh,
but,
dear.
Life went on. He held sway. There were battles between those who felt sugar in the diet was the problem, those who felt cholesterol was the problem. The cholesterol group won. Politics got involved. There are a whole range of factors, but flawed studies probably the beginning of it.
Gee.
What we know now, and the US Dietary Advisory Task Force very quietly, not a lot of fanfare about this, have removed cholesterol as a nutrient of concern, which is a roundabout way of saying cholesterol in the diet doesn't matter. And they've also changed the recommendations, and this is in America, not in Australia. We're years behind with this stuff, unfortunately. But there used to be a recommendation that you should only get a certain amount of your energy or calorie intake from fats, and that ceiling is now also, that recommendation has been removed. Because essentially what we're finding is it doesn't actually make any difference.
Joe, let's not gloss over the elephant in the room. So something as big as a reversal of what was an institutionalized recommendation of what cholesterol is doing to our bodies is just kind of like moved off the table. It's like, that never happened. That's pretty shocking.
There's lots of money being made out of low-fat foods, and you can understand why manufacturers would do it, because there's been demand, and it's been shown that consumption of low-fat foods, probably skim milk and low-fat dairy products, the key one has gone up, and consumption of full fat has gone down. There's a lot of people in public health saying, the public don't listen and don't do as we tell them. And look, to be honest, it'd be better if they didn't, I suspect. But they have, and you see that in those patterns, changed consumption patterns. So people have gone on to lower fat things, and of course manufacturers get on board. And if you get some professor somewhere saying it's healthy, well, of course they're going to put on their box or the packet that it's healthy. And not surprisingly, the consumer thinks, well, these people are supposed to know what they're talking about. I'll go along with this. But interestingly, there's a group, a broking finance group, Credit Suisse, who said the big money over the next little while is going to be back in full fat products, because the consumer, and you see that in people who are going down the paleo path, going down the keto path, the banting path. There's a variety of these things, that fats in the diet are not a problem. It has been officially recognised, but because of egos, reputations, dollars, whole range of things, they just don't really want to talk about it.
Joe, I was getting milk and I accidentally bought light milk. Yeah. And I get home and my family were not impressed. And I was ashamed.
Look, you can pick up the wrong box.
It's just not right, But it just shows you the attitude of what's good for you. Yeah. We have been bombarded with the opposite of what's really going on, and it can get very frustrating.
When we have fats in the diet, we're not flogging our insulin system. And we spoke in the sugar video about how we're having too much carbs, the body releases insulin to get rid of it, of course, gets it out of the bloodstream, encourages fat storage and inhibits fat burning. When we have fats in our diets, we've had eggs for breakfast or some yogurt instead of 2 slices of toast, that isn't happening. So it's actually better for our metabolism. Gentleman Warren Hepworth, he actually rode a push bike from Perth to Melbourne. It's not something I'd probably personally do, but absolutely good for him. But he did it without, and everybody's saying, you got a carbo load, you got to do this, you got to do that. And he did it on a high-fat, low-carb diet. Made it to the other end. All went well.
So Joe, what about statins and this whole idea of cholesterol is bad for you?
Depends on individual circumstances, but really a discussion about statins and their use and overuse, I think is probably something for a video of itself.
Please, because I have so many family and friends that are confused about this and they're still on them, and I'd like to get some clarity.
All right, we'll talk about that another time.
We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like Healthy Minded, please subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, and share with your friends. Please put comments below whether you agree, disagree, if you've got topics you'd like for the future. And until next time, stay healthy minded.